Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Mukti Vedanta Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shuddhavaya Paschatya Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Hare
Somebody Vijaji Chora just attached to see Simanta Meditation Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki Kankananda Charya Srila Prabhupada ki Prem Sikho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Dasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Jai Mukunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan ki Jai Sri Vrindavan Dham ki Jai Sri Navadip Mayapur Dham ki Jai Ganga Mai ki Jai Yamuna Mai ki Jai Bhakti Devi ki Jai Tulsi Devi ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari 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 Bol. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tenamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nivasesha Samyavadi Pashkati Desatarane Om Aganataminandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Saksi Sumilitan Jaina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manavistam Stapitam Jaina Bhutale Sayam Upakadamayam Dadati Sapanantikam Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaivascha Patitanam Prabhinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna. Good morning. Hare Krishna. Continuing reading from Caitanya Caritamrta. This is the third chapter of Madhya Lila after Mahaprabhu was taking sannyas. And he's tried to go to Vrindavan. That was his immediate impulse, to go to Vrindavan. Why? Anyone know why? Yeah.
To relish.
To find Krishna. So you're not wrong, but he wanted to find Krishna. Now, why did he want to find Krishna? No one knows. Why did he want to find Krishna?
Most loving person.
Huh?
The most loving person.
Who?
Krishna.
Krishna. But who has more love? The person who wants to find Krishna, the Ashaya Tattva, or the Vishaya Tattva, the object? So he was really the most loving person. He was in the mood of Srimati Radharani. But the question is the same question we can ask ourselves about finding Krishna. Do we want to find Krishna? And then we could ask why. Because he's the most loving person would be one answer. Another answer would be what? Or you could ask yourself, why do you want to find Krishna? Or do you want to find Krishna?
To have a relationship.
It's natural, isn't it?
The person you love, you would like to stay with him.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes we hear that separation from Krishna is higher than meeting. So therefore, it's higher than meeting Krishna. So does that mean that we should desire separation from Krishna? No. Because if you desire separation from Krishna, there won't be any separation from Krishna. Any mood of separation from Krishna. But if one desires to meet Krishna, then that person can experience separation from Krishna. And we've recently heard Prabhupada speak on this topic. He said, our practice from the Goswamis is separation and search. So that is what life's purpose is, to see that there's something missing. I'm separate from something essential in my life, and that something essential is not a thing, it's a person, it's Krishna. And then to search for him. So where do we search for him? Mahaprabhu tried to go to Vrindavan but couldn't. Nityananda Prabhu brought him back. Does that mean we should immediately run away to Vrindavan and leave everything? And perhaps, but that's not usually what one can do. But in the past, so many great souls actually did that. They just dropped everything. The Goswamis, Raghunath Das Goswami, we went to Vrindavan via Puri. The 6 Goswamis, they were seeking the shelter of the feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu basically sent Rupa and Sanatan to Vrindavan. But it wasn't to enjoy Vrindavan, it was to serve in Vrindavan. Because Krishna, we find Krishna, if we want to find Krishna, it's not meant, we don't want to find Krishna to enjoy Krishna, even though if one does find Krishna, one will enjoy oneself, but that's not the reason to find Krishna. And if we have that desire, we want to enjoy Krishna, then it's not on the level that will help us find Krishna. There is one devotee who saw Krishna and wanted to enjoy Krishna. Who knows the name of that devotee? Kubja. Yeah. She wanted to enjoy Krishna, and eventually Krishna placed his lotus feet upon her head or something, and she was purified of that bit of selfishness that sees Krishna as the object of one's pleasure, and rather one has to shift one's consciousness to see ourself as an object of Krishna's pleasure. That's actually the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, to see ourselves as meant for Krishna's pleasure. Rishikesha Rishikena Sevanam Bhaktu Uchite. Is this consciousness difficult to obtain? Srila Prabhupada in the Bhagavatam insisted, no, in one moment we can attain it. But it's not so easy because of what? What makes it difficult to obtain the consciousness that I am maintain it for more than 1 second or 2 seconds, but really maintain it. What's required and what stops us?
Ahankara.
Wait,
sorry.
Yes. First we have to.
We're not pure enough.
And what does that mean?
And so we still have material desires, and we still desire other things, like other than Krishna.
Yeah. So the container that all those desires sit within is, as Prabhu said, Sham Kishore Prabhu said, it's false ego. False sense of who we are. We are actually meant for Krishna's pleasure, as the fingers are meant for the service of the rest of the body. So Mahaprabhu was going to Vrindavan, but actually Nityananda Prabhu, being in the mood of Nityananda Prabhu and feeling the separation that the devotees in Navadvip Mayapur were feeling for Mahaprabhu, he brought Mahaprabhu back to the home of Sri Advaita Acharya, and then all the devotees came, and Sachimata came with the devotees the next day, and Sachimata, last week we read of the very touching scene of Sachimata seeing Mahaprabhu, seeing Nimai, and how even though he was a grown man, she put him on his lap. She put him on her lap and was crying and crying and crying, and then in the evening, the devotees with Mahaprabhu danced and chanted Krishna's holy names, and in the association of Mahaprabhu, that kirtan it really was the spiritual world. It was the spiritual world. It gives the taste that everyone is hankering for. It gives the taste, the kind of kirtan that they had, gives the taste, gives the serving Krishna, and it pleases the soul, it nourishes the soul, it pours the drops of water on the soul that in the material world, in the desert of the material world, is longing for. So, Advaitacharya had Mahaprabhu in his house, and he fed, and we heard how immediately Sita Thakurani and Advaitacharya fed Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, and that was the first time that Mahaprabhu had accepted alms. That means he had begged for his sustenance after taking sannyas. And then after the kirtan, the next day, all the devotees were there from Mayapur, from Navadip, all the devotees who Mahaprabhu had shared kirtan with day after day after day before he took sannyas, and they loved him, and he was their leader, and he was the source of their ecstasy, and then he had gone. Now, the next day, one could say according to the culture, everyone wanted to invite Mahaprabhu to take prasadam. They wanted to feed him, because that's what they wanted to do. That was their happiness, serving Mahaprabhu and feeding him in that way. So, text 168. Since Advaitacharya was giving alms and food to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the other devotees, headed by Srivas Thakur, also desired to give him alms and invite him for lunch. And Prabhupada, in his purport, he explains the nature of the culture was that any time a sannyasi comes to a village, everyone immediately invites him to the house. I mean, not everyone immediately, because it would get, that moment would get very crowded with people. But there would be, everyone would naturally, the people of the village, the culture was they would invite the sannyasi to their home. And there was a reciprocation in that. They would be giving the food that the sadhu, that the holy person required to sustain himself, and in return they would get the piety of feeding this holy person, but even more than that, in one sense, they would get instructions. He would speak to them about the purpose of life and don't waste life, and because there's such a tendency when one has a house and one has a family in that house, there's such a tendency for one to get so involved in that life and the needs of that life that one completely forgets that one is day by day getting older and getting closer to his own departure from this world, his own death, and there's such a tendency to forget this. So the sadhu's duty was to remind the householder who had kindly invited him to his house that no, life has a purpose. Don't just think of maintaining yourself and maintaining your family and how to get the food and how to get this and how to get that, and there's never enough, and you need more room and you need more this and you need... No. Yes, you have to do that duty. You have to do that duty according to your ashram and your grihastas, but you have to serve Krishna. This is the purpose of life. And if you don't serve Krishna, then your eyes are compared to what?
Peacock feather.
The eyes of a peacock feather. And usually we say nice things about peacock feathers because Krishna is very fond of peacock feathers. He's so fond that he takes them and places them upon his head. And your lungs are compared to
Bellows.
Bellows. We don't see bellows so much nowadays because we don't see blacksmiths so much nowadays. We don't see, except in when you go and visit your in-laws, you see smiths, right? You don't? Yes, that's where it comes from. And yeah, so it's that type of life is completely rejected. That lives just to live, just to maintain yourself. And this really is the greatest flaw in contemporary, as Prabhupada would say, so-called civilization, that there's no stated clear meaning of what life's purpose is. We sort of, one day we sort of are here, you sort of become conscious that you're here. Raise your hand if you're not conscious you're here. Well, that's only you. That's what I thought. Are you here or not?
I was doing it for fun.
What?
She was doing it for fun.
Yeah, well, I thought it was fun too. Because you can't raise your hand if you're not conscious you're here, because you have to be conscious that you're here to know that you're not here.
You have to be conscious that you're raising your hand.
Excuse me?
You've got to be conscious that you're raising your hand.
Yeah, you have to be conscious.
That you're conscious.
And you have to be conscious that you're conscious that you're conscious. So this consciousness that life has a purpose, and that suddenly I'm just here, and then I go through life, and then you get your education, then you do this, then you do that, then you do that, and then you do that, and then you do that, and then one day it's time to go. And then one thinks, well, what just happened? What just happened for the last? What was it all about? And what have I gained? Was I supposed to be doing something else? So what is the purpose of this existence? And therefore, Prabhupada would call it so-called civilization and so-called culture, because culture means the cultivation of spiritual life, of life's purpose, and that it is the activities of life, the culture, what's going on around us, that in which we grow within, is meant to facilitate our spiritual advancement. That was Prabhupada's point. And this will come up again very soon. So all the devotees, Srivas Thakur also immediately wanted to invite Mahaprabhu to his home, not his home exactly because he wasn't living there, but wanted to cook and serve Mahaprabhu. And that allowed for the intimacy of exchange also. So when Srivas Thakur suggested this, what will happen? Hearing these proposals made by other devotees of the Lord, Mother Shakshi said to the devotees, "How many times shall I get the chance to see Nimai again? As far as you are all concerned, you can meet Nimai, see Caitanya Mahaprabhu, many times somewhere else. You can go. Wherever he is, you can go and visit him there. But what is the possibility of my ever meeting him again? I shall have to remain at home," because she was a widow. Her husband, Sri Jagannath Misra, had left this world. She had no son to protect her and take care of her, so she wouldn't venture out of the house. So how will I ever meet him again? I have to remain at home. A sannyasi never returns to his home. The sannyasi is not supposed to go to his village again. So I won't see him again. And therefore, she appealed to all the devotees to give her one thing in charity. I'm begging you, I'm requesting you, do one thing for me. And that is, as long as Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, as long as Nimai, Avastan, as long as he stays here, as long as he remains in the house of Advaitacharya, please allow me to be the one to cook for him. Let me supply him food. Such a mother. This is what she requested. Let me cook for him. Let me have this opportunity, because I won't have it again. And you'll all have your time with him. And indeed, Advaitacharya, Srivas Thakur, when Mahaprabhu ended up going to Jagannath Puri, they all had their time with him. They all invite him. That was one of the main occupations of the devotees in Puri, bringing Mahaprabhu to their home and cooking for him and feeding him Jagannath Mahaprasadam and food that they would cook like that. So hearing this appeal from Mother Sachi, all the devotees immediately, Shuni Bhaktagan Kohi Kori Namaskar. They offered their obeisances immediately, their respectful obeisances. Matara Jai Icha Se Tamatas Shabar. That all the devotees said, whatever you request, Mother Sachi, whatever is your desire, Icha, whatever is your desire, our desire is to fulfill your desire. So this is a different way of looking at the world, isn't it? That our desire, my desire, is to fulfill the desire of another. Rather, we tend to look at the world in exactly the opposite way. My desire is that you fulfill my desire. And I look at the world thinking that everyone's business, everyone's main occupation should be to make me happiness, bring me happiness. And I try to, and depending upon my karma, depending on my power, how much Shakti I have, I try to organize the world in such a way that it fulfills, the universe fulfills my desire. So could you imagine a world where there's almost 7 billion people all thinking like that your business is to fulfill my desire? And so there's a lot of competition, and there's a lot of this distrust, and there's a lot of anxiety, and there's a lot of anger. And the reality is that the universe is not set up to fulfill our desire. And no matter what we do, no matter how powerful we are, the universe will always be quite uncooperative, even though for some time, according to our fate, it seems like we are doing well. I once heard an example given that we are successful in this world like a person on top of a very tall building, on the roof of a very tall building. Do you have that in your mind, the picture? And he's on top, and then he looks down, he decides to jump. So for 1 second or 2 seconds, he's jumping up, and he thinks, I'm going up. But it's just a bit of time away that up turns to down. In fact, there's this one of the great Chinese saints, when he was an expert at throwing these coins that could tell the future. So he threw the coins, and he got a reading that said, great happiness and peace. Now, if you got that reading, how would you feel?
Disappointed.
Okay, you're a great sage like Confucius, but he became frightened. He became frightened. Why? Well, how would you feel?
I'd look forward to it, to be honest.
Yeah. How would you feel? Great happiness and peace. Well,
If he's telling the truth?
No, he was expert at it. It was fortunate. But he knew that what follows happiness is distress, and what follows peace is turmoil, because everything is always changing. He knew this. So therefore, he immediately, when he got that wonderful future reading, he was in anxiety. Just like... So, they all agreed to serve Mother Sachi's desire because they knew that would bring Mahaprabhu. The devotee is the source of the happiness of the Lord. So when we serve the devotee, then the Lord becomes happy. So that's what the spiritual world is like, and that's why we can't go there. We don't belong there at this point because, well, I shouldn't say we, but until our desire is really focused on giving Krishna pleasure, there won't be anything to do in the spiritual world. We'll be bored. And we won't fit in because everyone else, especially in Vaikuntha and in Vrindavan, they're only thinking about what is going to please Krishna, because the central theme of these places is love, prema. Prema rules, the love of the devotees rules the spiritual world. And everyone who is there serves that. They don't push themselves forward. They serve that. The mood is service. So there is no discord there. There is harmony there because everyone is in agreement to serve Krishna. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw his mother's great eagerness, for what? For what? Cooking for him, to feed him. Her Nimai. She wanted to feed her Nimai. When he saw his mother's great eagerness, he became a little agitated, became disturbed, because he also knew that she was in anxiety. This was the last time she was going to see him, she thought. So he became disturbed, agitated. And he therefore brought all the devotees together. All the devotees present, he assembled them, he brought them together, and he spoke to them. Because not only Sachimata was feeling disturbed, it's like, but all the devotees were feeling disturbed because they knew that Mahaprabhu was here right now. They had lost him. He had taken sannyas. And now, by the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, he had brought them back, but he was a sannyasi, and he was going to keep moving, traveling. It describes, Srila Jiva Goswami describes that when Krishna finally returned to Vrindavan, after the killing of who did he return after the killing of? Do you know? When Krishna returned to Vrindavan, did you know that?
I heard some stories about
Yeah, well, he returned after killing the last demon. Did anyone know who that was? Vidurata, and Dantavakra first, and then Vidurata. And then, because Vidurata and Dantavakra, this was after the killing of Salva, which occurred in Dwarka, and then Dantavakra went to Mathura and challenged Krishna. Now, why did he go to Mathura to challenge Krishna when Krishna was so far away in Dwarka? Because he was in Mathura, and Mathura is very close to where? Wrong door. Wrong door, but right place. And right person. So, why did he go to Mathura to challenge Krishna is because he knew that he was so close to Vrindavan, Dantavakra, and Krishna would have to come to protect the residents of Vrindavan. There was the unspoken threat there. So Krishna, he heard about this outside the gates of Dwarka. He heard that Dantavakra was there challenging him and wanted to fight him. So what did Krishna usually do before he would leave Dwarka? Because he had culture, he was the perfect example. What would he usually do? He would go and see his parents and Ugrasena, take their permission, offer their respects, get their blessings, and then he would leave. But this time, he didn't. Because they wouldn't give him permission, he thought, he feared, he knew. They wouldn't give him permission to go to Mathura because the same reason that Dantavakra went to Mathura, because it was too close to Vrindavan. And if it was so close to Vrindavan, they thought that Krishna would go to Vrindavan. And then, if Krishna went to Vrindavan, they'd probably never see him again. That's what they were thinking. The Brajbasis would capture Krishna by their great love. So, Mahaprabhu was a sannyasi, so everyone was disturbed. So anyway, when Krishna went back, Srila Jiva Goswami describes he was in a chariot and he went back and he was with the residents of Vrindavan and he was there, but they kept on looking and they saw the chariot was there. And when they saw the chariot was there, immediately they were in anxiety, because if the chariot is there, that which brought him here could be very easily that which takes him away. Again, the vehicle of his arrival was the vehicle of his departure. So they couldn't be peaceful. So the residents of Mayapur, Navadip, in the home of Advaitacharya, they looked at it. They looked at Mahaprabhu and saw that he was a sannyasi. And they couldn't be peaceful even though they were in his presence. And because they weren't peaceful, he couldn't be peaceful because of the love. Their anxiety was his anxiety. So he assembled them all together. And he informed them, without your order, I tried to go to Vrindavan. There was some obstacle, and I had to return. The obstacle was Nityananda Prabhu. He wanted the residents of Navadip Mayapur to see Sri Krishna and Caitanya. And then he said, my dear friends, although I have suddenly accepted this renounced order, I still know that I shall never be indifferent to you. What does indifferent mean?
Not different. We're pretty close to each other.
Indifferent means what?
In this context, the relationship of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not change.
But what does the word mean?
Sorry?
What does the word mean, indifferent?
It does not change.
But,
It remains similar.
Not friendly.
Means neutral. I will not be indifferent means, say if someone comes who you see someone on the street that you're angry at, or you just walk past them, or someone that you don't know, you just walk past, you're indifferent to them, you're neutral to them. And it means that they could just as easily be not there as there. You don't care, you're neutral, indifferent. That's what indifferent means. It's so wonderful that none of you immediately, when I asked you what indifferent meant, pulled out your mobile phones and Googled it. You're also advanced and focused. So although I have suddenly accepted this renounced order, I still know that I shall never be indifferent to you. Although I've accepted it, I know in my heart, because of the exchanges of love that we have, that you have. It's not only you who has that, I also have that. So I know that I cannot be neutral to you. I cannot ignore you. I cannot make believe that we don't have a relationship. Even though it appears that I'm indifferent to you and I didn't care about you and therefore I took sannyas and I left, but I know that I can't be indifferent to you. I can't be neglect you. My dear friends, as long as I remain manifest, and here it says Javad Ami Jiva. Basically it means as long as I have life, as long as I'm alive. And Prabhupada translates that as long as I am manifest, as long as I am present in this world, I shall never give you up, nor shall I be able to give up my mother. After accepting sannyas, it is not the duty of a sannyasi to remain at his birthplace encircled by relatives, because a sannyasi, and this we see when Mahaprabhu, after going to Jagannath Puri, he begins his tour of South India. The devotees who went with him, Mukunda, Jagadananda, Damodar Pandit, and Nityananda Prabhu, they had come with him all the way from Advaitacharya's house, and Mukunda had, they had come all the way with him to Jagannath Puri, and Mahaprabhu met so many people and so many devotees, especially Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and then they were expecting when he left, they would also leave and go with him. But Mahaprabhu said no. And you know what reason he gave? This wasn't, of course, it's not always that everyone tells everything when one gives a reason. And Mahaprabhu didn't tell everything, but the reason he gave them, he said, because I am a sannyasi, I'm going to want to perform austerities. And when you travel in that way, when you travel, it's like when we travel with a big suitcase. But just imagine if you're going to India and you had your big suitcase, imagine if you had to walk. You'd probably minimize what you would take with you, because
it would be very difficult.
Even if your suitcase had wheels, it would be difficult.
Swim.
You'd have to swim, and not only that, you'd always be afraid. What would you be afraid of? If you have a big suitcase, what would you be afraid of?
Cars.
Cars.
Cars coming down the road and have a big heavy suitcase.
I hadn't thought of it like that before. But yeah, you'd be afraid of cars. And anything else?
Yes.
Yeah, you'd be afraid of not theft, but thieves. Because everyone's looking at you. Oh, I wonder what is in that suitcase. Maybe it's full of gold and diamonds and jewels. Or something of value. And then especially if someone's nice to you. Oh yes, nice, how nice to see you. You need any help carrying your suitcase? What's in it, by the way? Gold? So when you're walking on pilgrimage, walking to a holy place, naturally one minimizes what one carries for these reasons, because you want to depend on Krishna. You don't want to be, you want to be free. We think of all the things in our suitcases, that which facilitates our happiness, but actually it's a heavy load to carry. And I've seen words written by completely renounced sadhus that say ordinary people cannot understand the freedom of a renunciant. My dear friends, he said, as long as I remain manifest, I shall never give you up, nor shall I be able to give up my mother. After accepting sannyas, so now he's bringing up the problem, though. I'm so attached to you all, he said. But after accepting sannyas, and I can't bear the thought of causing my mother and all of you trouble by just leaving you. After accepting sannyas, however, it is not the duty of a sannyasi to remain in his birthplace, encircled by relatives who will take care of him, and they won't allow him to perform any austerities. So then he said, make some arrangement, please, so that I may not leave you, and at the same time, people may not blame me for remaining with relatives after taking sannyas. So on one side, I want to be with you, so he's expressing this deep love. But on the other side, I'm a sannyasi, and people are going to criticize if I stay with you. So please, help me solve this problem. Because it seems that it's quite contradictory, paradoxical. Even worse than contradictory, paradoxical, because sometimes you can resolve contradictions, but by definition you can't resolve a paradox, because by definition they are irresolvably opposite and different. So after hearing Lord Chaitanya's statement, all the devotees, headed by Advaitacharya, they approached Mother Sachi. When they submitted Lord Chaitanya's statement, explained to her, this is the situation, what should we do? What can we do? Mother Sachi, who is the mother of the universe, began to speak. Sachi Mata said, it will be a great happiness for me if Nimai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, stays here. But at the same time, if someone blames him, if people criticize him, it will be my great unhappiness. Because usually we think in the opposite way, even though when someone's having difficulty, we say, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. But inside, sometimes we think, you're lucky I'm not in charge, otherwise it would be 10 times worse. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. How's another knife feel in your back? Especially in the office, I think. It's like, oh, how are you? Did you have a good weekend? Good. I'm so sorry to hear that. Can you imagine? I remember when we were young, there was this magazine that showed the difference between the persona, the face, the mask. That people, what they're saying in the mask, and then there was, in this magazine, there was like one of those cartoon bubbles coming up with the dots around it saying what the people were really thinking. And it was, yeah. And we laugh, but it's not funny, especially when we're the one who's doing it. And witnessing that part of ourself that isn't the well-wisher of others is very painful. So usually we forget that. So Sachi says, if someone, this will be I want him to stay. Of course I want him to stay. How could I not want him to stay? But it will be, because him not staying will be so painful. But what will cause me more pain is if people criticize him and blame him. That will be my great unhappiness. Now, Prabhupada has a little bit of a long purport here, and I won't read that, but we can read that next week. But I'll just, we'll hear more about what Sachimata says next week. Krishna willing. So thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Little one, I know you have a comment. you have any comments or questions?
Well, of course nobody wants their child to go away, even if they're all grown up, they're sannyasi. Nobody wants them to just go away.
Yeah.
Without, like,
Yeah.
say goodbye.
Even if they say goodbye, they don't want them to go away.
And to go away, so, like, I would be like, well, you can go away, but then you have to come back, like, 1 second.
You can go away, but come back. For as long until I clap my hands, you can go away. Okay, you can go away. Okay, come back. Now you can go. Come back.
Yeah, and then you could say, all right, you have to.
But they actually asked Satyamata to resolve this problem, and she's going to resolve it. And you know what she's going to do?
She'll probably say, like,
You can-
what it wants.
Okay, but you'll have to come next week and find out what she actually said, okay? Okay, try your best. Okay, any other comments? Other than those very deep ones? Yes, or questions?
Question, Prabhu.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, when we start our devotional practice, there's some sort of an impetus because being in Krishna consciousness is so wonderful, and Krishna's pastimes sound so wonderful. So there's that impetus there that propels us to
Yes.
to remain with the devotees. So that's, in a sense, selfish. It's not purely to serve Krishna only. So is that something that will hinder our progress if we don't have that sole desire to please Krishna only, because there's something in it for us in return?
Will that hinder our progress? What do you mean by progress?
Or
Will it hinder our progress, or will it give us the visa to enter Goloka Vrindavan? Which is your question?
will it stop us from entering Goloka Vrindavan?
Okay, and what is your answer?
Don't know.
What do you think?
Well, Kubja praised Krishna for selfish reasons, but then she became purified because
Yeah.
she praised Krishna.
Yeah. Well, what do you think?
Ditto.
What do you think?
Pretty much on the same lines.
What do you think?
I don't think it will hinder.
Huh?
It will not hinder because Krishna and his devotees are all part of the same thing. So being with devotees is as good as pleasing Krishna too.
What do you think?
I didn't catch the
Huh?
I didn't catch the question.
The question was, will it hinder your spiritual life not your spiritual life, but will you hinder your actual attainment of Goloka Vrindavan if in the beginning in your spiritual life one's purity isn't at the level of doing everything for Krishna, but there's some selfishness. Did I get it right?
Yes, you seeking the pleasure of being in Krishna consciousness because there's joy in it. It's not just solely for Krishna's pleasure.
Yeah. What do you think?
Sukham kartum. Krishna consciousness itself is joyful.
What do you think? Yeah.
Oh, and that's the beginning, but there are so many stages that go higher and higher, and things get purified and changed, and it won't be like that at the end.
And you will say, of course, you will agree completely with your father, being a cultured young man.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's just the first stage.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say also. But it's and to say that that's wrong is like when you when you learn in the first grade 1 + 1 is 2, and if someone says to you, is it possible to take, say if you have 2 apples, is it possible to take 5 apples from the 2 apples?
No.
No, right, and that's first grade. But then when you're learning algebra, you learn that there's something called minus numbers, so you can have a -3, which is also called debt, in one sense. So it's possible to have a minus value. So, unless you learn 1 and 1 is 2, and start with that and be happy with that. But then you won't be able to go to higher math. And at some point, quite naturally, it happens that you understand that I have to go deeper and surrender more. So the answer, like in many situations, is yes or no. So very good. But we still have to transfer the center from me and what pleases me to what pleases Krishna. Yeah, but that can't happen artificially. You can't say, from now on, I'm only going, you can't say it. We can all say it, 1, 2, 3. From now on, I'm only going to do whatever is pleasing to Krishna. I don't care at all if it's pleasing to me. We could all say it, but we won't act on that level. But what makes one act on that level quite naturally is love. So when love starts to blossom in the heart, then it's natural to act on that level. And when one tries to act on a level that's unnatural, it doesn't work, and it hits you later on. But yet we will have to advance. Good question, though. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, I know you have a question hidden in there.
I was just thinking of Dhruva Maharaj, isn't it? He had selfish motives when he was trying to find something in life, and then he realized Krishna is perfection. Dhruva Maharaj.
Yeah.
So he had selfish interests when he was younger.
What was his self-interest when he was younger?
From memory of what I learned, he wanted to sit on his father's lap. However, his stepmother.
What did he actually desire that he went to look for Krishna to gain?
I guess fulfillment, or
no. What did he desire?
He wanted.
Oh, sorry. You better give a real answer this time, okay? Not speculative.
He actually wanted to just. He wanted to get his own kingdom bigger than his father.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so bigger than Brahma.
He even wanted a kingdom bigger than Lord Brahma. He went to Krishna to get a big material, gigantically huge material desire fulfilled. And yet, and he saw Krishna Garbha, who came to him. Now, interestingly enough, very interestingly enough, that Mahaprabhu loved that story. That story in Prahlad Maharaj, he would read that in the Bhagavatam and cry, tears would come from his eyes. So what was wonderful about Dhruva Maharaj's turning to Krishna, even though it was to attain something material? What so touched Mahaprabhu? Yes.
But he understood that Krishna was the supreme.
Yes, but a little more. What was the quality that Dhruva Maharaj had?
Process.
Huh?
Followed a process.
Yes. He was so determined. So even if one has material desires, if one is determined to follow the process, those material desires will drop away like the skin of a snake. I don't know if that's the best example, but because after the skin of the snake drops away, there's still a snake left. But it would drop away like the feathers of a molting bird. But that's not such a good example either, because after the feathers had dropped away from the molting bird, the bird looks so ugly. There's another example somewhere. But if one is determined, and who knows the verse in the Bhagavatam that explains this? Akama sabakama vamoksha kama darali tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusha para. And the example is given that of the Ganga. When the Ganga, the waters of the Ganga, have any of you ever been to Yamunotri? Or excuse me, Gangotri, or above that, Gomukh? And the water is so forceful, it pushes. Have you been? Yeah. Did you bathe?
Yeah, only in Rishikesh. We didn't head up there.
Yeah. I did. The water there were big ice chunks floating in the water, being pushed by the force. And the water was so cold that you couldn't tell whether it was hot or cold. And now that was the fastest bath I ever took in my life. Does that appeal to you, Jimmy? It was so cold, but what could you do? Everyone was doing it. I couldn't not do it. Even Jagurupad did it. We all bathed. It was the appearance day of Mother Ganga. But Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, that it's so forceful, it will push away all the impurities. Yajeta Purushapara, the worship of the Lord. So therefore, Srila Sukadeva Goswami says, Akama Savakama, whatever your position is, whatever your desires are, you please worship the Supreme Lord. And the result will come. But be determined, like Dhruva Maharaj was determined. That determination was so powerful. I'm going to please Krishna. And gradually, and it wasn't long either, that his feathers or skin that weren't him fell off. And do you have the hiccups? Oh. There's the proof. Do you know that your grandmother taught us a way to get rid of hiccups? Now we can try. Do you know what it is? You better learn now. You take water, and of course, when you drink water, you drink it from this side, right? Do you know this one? And if you drink the water from the other side of the cup, even though it sounds, what you would say, counterintuitive, because what's going to happen if you drink the water from... Go ahead, try it. Let's see. Come on, we want to do an experiment. I'm serious. And no one will look. Go ahead, go try it. No? I'm serious. Your grandmother would be so pleased with you. And it gets rid. It works. You may end up with a little water on your shirt, but not very much. Okay. I think we finished. We also had some fun. At least I did. Okay. Sri Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.